Hello everyone, I hope everyone's doing well and welcome to Canada's Boxing Channel. This week we're going to hear lots and lots of speculative stories, no doubt, about Olexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois, and I'm going to try my best to kind of, navigate some of these stories and offer my opinion, my suggestions, where appropriate. And one of the stories that I've been following is a story that could best be described as who should Daniel Dubois fight next and who should Olexander Usyk fight next? Well, the Daniel Dubois question I think should be paused for a minimum of 6 months while he recombobulates. So we're going to get back to that one. The question about who should Olexander Usyk fight next is a very interesting question. My own personal opinion is that Olexander Usyk does not owe anybody any fights. European, world, Olympic champion, undisputed cruiserweight, undisputed heavyweight twice. If he said today, you know what folks, I'm done, we should all thank him very much for the entertainment he's provided to us and we should move on. Of course, we will all be a little bit sad because he's a magnificent athlete and performing at, well, based on the other night, at a level that's every bit as good as he's ever performed at. So let's just speculate and talk about who we think would make the best opponent for the great Olexander Usyk. I'm going to kind of start in some sort of, maybe reverse order. The person who's been maybe the loudest, certainly squawking the most, is the person who claims that he took his loss like a man, and yet clearly squealing all the time, and that's Tyson Fury, who's demanding a third fight in the UK where everything could be fair. To be honest, I would say that I have no interest whatsoever, really, in seeing that fight, though I will acknowledge that he, being Tyson Fury, did have moments of great success against Olexander Usyk, moments of success that rarely have been seen. I'm thinking Breedis when Olexander was a cruiserweight. So there is an argument, but it's not one that I personally want to see. A trilogy with AJ is even less appealing to me. I think, again, beaten, and I know people might have an issue when I say the word comprehensively. I understand that. I'm not going to really take issue, but I would say that both Fury and AJ have been well beaten, and so there isn't much point really in seeing a 3P. Other people have talked about Moses ITAUMA. Now, I'm going to say that would be a disaster for Moses ITAUMA. Win, lose, or draw. Let's see. If Moses ITAUMA, who I think may well be a generational talent coming up, was to prevail over Olexander Usyk, he would forever then be stuck in that, elite level where he would have to fight nothing but other elite contenders. And I don't think that would be helpful, because there are still foundational building blocks that Moses needs to put into his game. He needs to master a very wide or broad set of skills. Down the road, absolutely, Moses ITAUMA may well be somebody who we would say, he would have done this or that or the other against Usyk. But at the moment, it would be premature. Who else? Well, is there any point in giving Chisora's last fight? It could be entertaining. Chisora did a very good job on Usyk when Usyk was sort of first into the heavyweight division. But I don't think that that's something that I would like to see either. Who else? Well, the obvious choice to me is Joseph Parker. Do I think that Joseph Parker would prevail over Alexander Usyk? Frankly, no. I think, however, it would be an interesting match. Joseph Parker would bring something different. And, honestly, I think it would be the fair, I know fairness and boxing have very little to do with each other, but I think that would be the fair, the right, the most deserved opponent for Alexander Usyk. Another boxer to consider would be Agit Cabayel. An interesting stylistic matchup, no doubt whatsoever. And then some people might say, fair enough, but who were the absolute top dogs in the heavyweight division when Alexander Usyk came into the division? Well, those top dogs would be Fury, AJ, and Deontay Wilder, who was the long-reigning WBC champion, maybe champion for like 5 years. Now, Deontay Wilder is well past his best and is rebuilding at this late stage in his career, sort of coming back. You could say, well, that would, ensure that there wasn't a single name in the same era as Usyk that Usyk didn't beat. But again, for me, a somewhat pointless fight, and one that would be unlikely to be sanctioned by the various bodies. Having said that, I think if you're the double undisputed, sanctioning bodies should give you a kind of a break, just like the WBC gave Fury a break. But who then would Usyk choose? I don't like gimmick or novelty fights, so I'm not going to sort of suggest that there's any merit in some of the names, fringe names you may hear around the edges of this conversation. Here's looking at you, Jake Paul. So for me, I would say if Alexander Usyk doesn't retire, he should choose firstly Joe Parker, based on Joe Parker's position as the WBO mandatory, Joe Parker's run of form of late, beating Zhang and Wilder. And if Joe Parker isn't for some reason chosen, I would suggest Agit Cabayel. I think Cabayel, of all the names I've mentioned, might be the most interesting stylistic matchup, but we shall have to see. Anyways, just my short thoughts. Let me know who you would like to see Alexander Usyk fight next. Cheers. Have a great day, and please like, share, and subscribe if you can. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.